Ladies and gentlemen, take a gander at what the NBA play-in picture looks like after last night. So in the East, the Hawks and Hornets will go this evening, with the winner advancing to face the Cavs for the 8th seed. Now, Billy, let's make our way a little south there on that graphic. In the West, it's the Pelicans and Spurs, with the winner moving on to face the Clippers. Because we know what went down last night. Clippers lose to the Timberwolves, and you have the Nets knocking off the Cavs. But back to the East just real quick. So that Kyrie Irving, revenge tour, it is 100% underway. The current Net, former Cav, what did he make? His first 12 shots last night, which would have been a postseason record if these play-in games actually counted as a real playoff game, but they do not. No one is more nervous right now, though, than the center court logo of the Celtics, Mr. Lucky. And speaking of Lucky, Julian Edlow and Mr. Nick Whalen, two dudes who know how to talk basketball, are here. Jules, which 7 seed has the better chance of pulling the upset?
I mean, the Nets are still, if you go by the futures market, the second favorite to come out of the East, yet underdogs in this series. It's always the Nets. Are the Nets a good bet in terms of the number that they're at to win the East? No, but if there's any lower seed that can go on a run, we all know who it is. So it's the boring answer, but it's the correct answer because we know halfway through the year, whatever it was, when healthy, the Nets were the 1 seed in the East. So if they have Durant playing at their, if Durant and Kyrie play like they did last night, not many people, if anybody, can beat them in that game. They're not going to do that every night. But, we know what the Nets' ceiling is. They're overpriced, but they can absolutely still win.
Nick, how bizarre was Glue Girl last night in that Minnesota game?
I've never seen anything like that. Glue Girl's the face of the NBA right now, I think, until further notice. I was watching the game with the sound off at the time, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. Like, are you watching this? Are you watching this? I'm like, yeah, it's a timeout. I don't know what I missed. And then I rewound it, watched the entire saga. Good job, I guess, by TNT of not giving her too much shine. It's like when a streaker runs on the field at an NFL game, you never really get to see it.
Yeah, we should be able to see that. I'm a big believer, and they should show streakers.
Oh, absolutely. And if that increases and we get more streakers, then so be it. Great. That's great entertainment. That was a bizarre way for that game to get derailed. I thought, Minnesota, I think it was a 1-point game at the time. And then essentially right after that, you go into half and then, the Clippers go on a run. But the Timberwolves were able to overcome Glue Girl, get the win. And I kind of echo what Julian said, though. Fun story. I think Grizzlies Timberwolves is going to be a super fun, super watchable first round series. But, there's a reason that when you look at the series prices on DraftKings, the Nets are plus 110 to beat the Celtics. And Minnesota's all the way down at plus 275 to win that series against the Grizzlies.
All right, well, the Timberwolves closed the first half on a 15-6 run after Glue Girl. So she played a crucial part last night in that victory. Let's talk about some best bets tonight here, though, dudes. We have the 9th and 10th place games playing. First up here, we have the Hawks, 4.5-point home favorite, now 5-point home favorite against the Hornets. So do you think Atlanta covers here, Jules?
I don't like these games quite as much as I do last night's. Last night, I had a middle on Brooklyn winning and the Cavs with the points, which was perfect. I did have the Clippers, felt really good about that until apparently Glue Girl robbed me. She actually is a great inspiration to me. I'm going to glue myself to the floor at St. Bonaventure next year in protest of how much money they lost me this year.
You just have to use stronger glue. What did she use?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go
Gorilla Glue.
Yeah, no, I'm going to really lather myself up in Gorilla Glue and just
love it.
Flop right on the court at St. Bonaventure in protest. But yeah, I lean to the Hawks. I think they're the better team. They're at home. We're looking at a team, you want to go by Charlotte. They got mopped by the Pacers in the play-in round last year. Now maybe they learned something from that and they're out for a little bit of revenge here, but they're also playing a team that went to the Eastern Conference Final. We know they have that type of ceiling. So I don't like these. I probably won't bet a side on either of these two games tonight. But Atlanta would certainly be the side for me if I was in on this game.
All right, Nick, what side do you want to bet here?
I feel the same way, and you're not going to find a stat or really anything that I think is going to definitively say the Atlanta Hawks are for sure winning this game. But there's a reason that this line has swelled to Hawks -5. For as explosive and talented as Charlotte is on offense, I mean, you could argue man to man, the Hornets are the more talented team in this game, especially with no John Collins for Atlanta. But this is a team that will go and blow out a bad team like 141 to 120, and then they'll turn around and play a good team the next night and lose by 25. So, they've had a lot of ups. They've had a lot more downs, I think, overall, when you look at who they've actually beat this season. And, like Julian said, I find myself trusting this Hawks team just a little bit more, even though this has felt like a pretty disappointing season overall. Less than a year ago, this team was playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, and with Giannis injured, looked like they might be on their way to the NBA Finals for a short period of time. So that's a lot more than the Charlotte team has accomplished. And if it comes down to it, I guess the rationale is I'm just putting blind faith in Trae Young.
Hey, Nick, let's go to the Western Conference here as well, because you have the Pelicans hosting the Spurs. So New Orleans now a 5.5-point favorite. How much do you like the idea of an upset tonight?
I like the idea of it. I don't know if we're going to see it. I mean, this is a game that I feel like I just don't have a good read on. Really, of the 4 playing games, it's the one that I think kind of makes the least sense to me. More and more, the more you dig into it, I am kind of leaning toward the Pelicans, and obviously the odds are leaning that way as well. But both of these teams were 10 games under 500 during the regular season. So there's not like a ton of hard data to point to that like one team is significantly better than the other. With that said, I think the Pelicans have more top-end talent. I think Brandon Ingram being cleared for this game and more importantly, logging a full practice yesterday, that's what I was mostly worried about. Like if the Pelicans were going into this game with Ingram questionable or, potentially playing at like 75%, to me, that's a pretty big deal. But if he's back and he looks like himself, I think that's probably enough to push the Pelicans over the top. I mean, very quietly, New Orleans has been a top 10 offense and defense since the All-Star break.
Hey, Jules, you have a good read on this one?
I don't love this game either, but I echo most of what Nick said. It's a weird game. Like the Spurs were actively, not actively tanking, but the Spurs were tanking. Like they weren't playing their guys. DeJounte Murray didn't play until the last game of the season. They would have been fine with the Lakers getting the last play-in spot, but the Lakers stink so badly that they just handed it to the tanking Spurs, who are now here. Now you're here. You might as well, you're probably not going to win the game in LA on Friday night. So you might as well get your guys some playoff experience, some of those younger guys with the Spurs, get them some experience and try and be, one of the lower end playoff seeds in the West next year. So it's just a weird path for the Spurs to be in this game. They were sellers at the deadline. The Pelicans were big buyers at the deadline. New Orleans should win this game. It's a lot of points to lay. Spurs are a pretty good bet as a dog. Spurs have been decent away. I can't lay the points again, but I do think the Pelicans win this game. So, again, there's nothing I'm betting with much confidence tonight. If I were a casual bettor that looking to get, a little bit of action, I would consider a Hawks-Pelicans moneyline parlay, just the 2 home favorites. I think they get through, but 5 to 5.5 points in each game is a little bit much for me.
All right, you're talking parlay there, but what about which props catch your eye tonight, Jules?
I'm so boring today.
You really are. This is
the
bad.
The playing games last night were awesome, and these ones just don't jump out to me. Cold take, I know. So let's go with another one that nobody's going to want to bet. I wouldn't mind betting Trae Young's points under against the Hornets. They're a top 10 team defensively against the point guard position. They have a little bit of size to put on them, at least with the guys that they start. And that can bother Trae Young at times. You go back and look at the game log. He did score just 9 points the last time he played Charlotte, and he played pretty much his full allotment of minutes. He averages just over 20 per game against them this season, which is well under his point prop. So, these games, these one-game play-ins, you kind of lean on your star power, but if you can stomach it, I don't mind a Trae Young under.
Seriously, the best thing you've said today, you've talked about smothering your naked body in glue and throwing yourself onto the court at St. Bonaventure.
Yeah, I actually never said anything about being naked, but you opened it up to that part.
It's implied, I think.
Yeah, you definitely implied it. Thank you very much, Waylon. So any props catch your eye tonight?
Well, first of all, I love this idea of like a breakout of copycat attacks like around the country of Glue Girl. Julian's right about Trae Young. Charlotte has employed some interesting tactics when it comes to defending Trae Young. They've he put up 30 in the previous game against Charlotte prior to the one that Julian mentioned, where they kind of shut him down as a scorer, but in that game where they held him under 10 points, he also had 15 assists. They were swarming him basically as soon as he got over half court. And Trae Young, because he's Trae Young, was making the right read and essentially letting his teammates hit open shots. So if that's the strategy that Charlotte is going to try to employ tonight, I think it's a good call to bet the under on Trae Young's point prop. But if you want to go over on assists, I would like that. There is a prop out there on DraftKings at 7-1. You can get LaMelo Ball and Trae Young to each have at least 12 assists in this game. Trae has 2 15-assist games against Charlotte this season. LaMelo is probably the portion of this bet that you'd worry about a little more, but he does have 11 games this season with at least 12 assists. So at 7-1, you're getting decent value. And then kind of sticking with that same logic of Trae Young, being the distributor, Kevin Huerter to hit at least 4 threes is plus 275 at DraftKings. He had at least 4 threes in 3 of their 4 regular season matchups.
All right, guys, last one here. We've talked about it already throughout this segment. We know the 2 teams that are definitely in the NBA playoffs after last night. So which of their futures bets, things like, a series prop, conference finalist, conference winner, NBA champ, which ones interest you now that we know that they have secured a spot like in the postseason? Jules, I know you mentioned some of the numbers before and how heavily favored like the Nets are, at least when you look at some of the futures.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily do anything for me in terms of winning the conference or winning the NBA Finals, but it gives us some series that we now know. And, I have some opinions on those series. The Celtics opened, as you would imagine, because the Nets are higher favorites in the conference. The Celtics opened plus 115 in the series and have since moved to minus 130 favorites, a move I agree with. The Nets can be good, but the Celtics are the better team right now. They are. As long as Tatum can be anything close to Durant, Jaylen Brown can be anything close to Kyrie Irving, the rest of the talent after that all falls in Boston's favor. So, going against the Nets in the first round, I like. And then on the other side of it, Minnesota getting the Grizzlies, like Nick said, very watchable series. That's going to be a lot of fun. The Timberwolves celebrated like they won the Super Bowl last night, and they got made fun of on the broadcast. Memphis is a really good home team. They come out of the gates hot. If you follow me on Twitter, we've been betting first quarter team totals all year. Memphis to score in that first quarter. Memphis on the first half spread in that first game 1, fading Minnesota. I like that angle a lot. And I think that Memphis maybe laying like a game and a half in that series, get it done in 6 or less. That's a future that I like.
All right, Nick, which ones do you like here, dude? I'm looking at length of the series total gains for the Celtics and Nets. Obviously, the long shot is a sweep in 4 games, but 6 games you got plus 185. 5 games is plus 300. Could go 7 games, you get plus 175 odds.
Yeah, I mean, those are always so intriguing to look at, and then when you start to parse it, it's really hard to kind of put all your eggs in one of those baskets, because you could totally see that being a 6-game series. You could totally see it being a 7-game series. You guys could probably talk yourselves into Boston winning in 5. I think that's one way to maybe try to attack that Memphis-Minnesota series. You look at, chances are Minnesota, I think, could probably steal 1 game from Memphis. Like, I want to give the Grizzlies the respect they deserve for being, far and away the second best team in the NBA this season, regardless of conference. But, some question marks as far as Ja Morant coming back after missing a decent chunk of time to end the regular season. I know he played in their finale, but, I think he still kind of has to prove something on that front. So you could get that series to go 5 games at plus 250. I think that's a pretty reasonable price. 6 games at plus 215. One thing with the way that the bracket now falls, now that we know that the Nets are the 7 seed, this makes me now like the Heat a little bit more, or at least the path that the Miami Heat have to the Eastern Conference Final. Like, I am not a big believer in the Philadelphia 76ers as a playoff juggernaut, even if they get through Toronto in round 1. I like Miami to beat Philly or Toronto in round 2 and find their way to the Eastern Conference Finals. So, you could get something like a Nets-Heat Eastern Conference Finals matchup at plus 475 on DraftKings. And you can find similar odds for, Bucks Heat or Celtics Heat if you like that a little bit more. But, that's kind of one like divergent way to look at this is, to me, it opens things up even more in this bracket for Miami.
All right, guys, wonderful work. We learned a lot about you today, Julian. And
Yeah.
I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot, Waylon, for playing along as well. From a sport that is entering the postseason, that is there, to one that is just 2.5 weeks away. And we got a couple guys chasing some major milestones tonight around the NHL. We will talk with AJ and Paul right after this. All right, take a gander here. Sports points galore around the NHL. You have Johnny Gaudreau becoming the latest player to hit the 100-point mark. I believe, what is he, the sixth player in franchise history to do that, and has the Flames like sitting atop the division. I'm not sure many people saw that coming before the season. And then you have Paul Bruno's Austin Matthews at 99 points. Couldn't quite get there, but we'll have another shot at doing it. Tomorrow? You're going to be hosting the Capitals there, Paul. RotoWire's Paul Bruno. RotoWire's AJ Scholes, like in the house. Guys, the scoring this season has been kind of like off the charts. Like, why all of a sudden are we seeing this shift in more offensive and skilled players, AJ?
Well, I don't think we actually are seeing a shift compared to the last 2 years. Let's remember, both of those seasons were shortened to one degree or another. If you look at the point per game pace, 8 players last year would have put up 100 points over an 82-game season, which makes the fact that McDavid did it in 56 games last year all the more ridiculous. And in 2018-19, you would have potentially had 9 guys capable of hitting that mark, again, if they had played full 82-game seasons. So really, this isn't anything new. It's just a fact of the game. We have guys putting up big numbers. You know, it was a couple of years ago, they made the goalies wear the slightly tighter pants, the small. I mean, they're making the goalies work for it these days. And they're just, I haven't pulled up the numbers on this, but I don't think we've seen quite as many shutouts over the last few years either. So
yeah,
it's not a recent trend, that's for sure.
Well, Paul, like I'm looking at Hockey Reference, we're looking at an average of 3.12 goals are being scored by each team per game this season. That's the highest mark in the Cap era. Like, we haven't seen this many goals scored since 95-96. The average then was 3.14.
You know what? We're seeing that particularly on the power plays. You're seeing a team close to my heart has a success rate over 30%. We have not seen that before. Many teams are upwards of 25 even. We haven't seen that with any great regularity. And it's all about the level of aggression, both from the attacking team and the forechecking team. Aggression leads to mistakes. Aggression leads to opportunity. It's one of those two paths is going to lead to more scoring chances either way. And that's what's happening. We're seeing more scoring chances in those special teams opportunities, but also in the regular course of play. Even with the net empty situation, we're seeing a higher percentage of goal scoring because, again, the teams are really making smarter use of putting pressure on the goal rather than being passive in their attack and conversely passive on the defensive side of the puck. Again, I'll use the Leafs as an example. They've got 13 shorthanded goals. That's amazing so far this season. And it's because they're really putting pressure on the opposing power plays. So it's that level of aggression and the corresponding increase in mistakes that's leading to the higher scoring in my estimation.
Yeah, and AJ, I think the Panthers last night won their 8th straight game. Like, they're at the forefront of this new trend, too. They're averaging nearly 4.2 goals per game. That's the highest mark since your Penguins back in 96. No other team in that span, AJ, has averaged over 4 per game.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I think there's, in addition to the goalie changes, the rule changes have made it easier to, get power plays and teams are taking advantage of it, as Paul said. But there's more stick infractions being called, stuff like that. So you have more opportunities on the power play. And I would not expect this trend to change anytime soon. Goalies have, in some cases, adapted, and in others, they haven't. And we're seeing guys that aren't holding up in the same ways that they necessarily used to.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's focus a little bit on tonight. Looks like we got 4 games on the slate here, dudes. AJ, we'll start with you. Hook me up with your favorite DFS play at center, please.
I was really tempted to recommend Nathan McKinnon here. It's a good matchup with Colorado playing at home, and he's just been phenomenal. But when you consider that Mika Zibanejad is $1,900 cheaper, I think you have to go that route instead. He's 1 point away from setting a new career high. You combine that with the fact that the Flyers got absolutely rocked last night by Washington, and there's no sign they're going to be able to stem the tide. I think this has all the makings of a blowout, and Mika's, like I said, Zibanejad's discount rate compared to McKinnon just makes him the much better play, in my opinion. There's other guys you could use further down the lineup, but the matchup is too good, and you're not having to pay all the way to the top.
Okay, Paul, what do you want to do here? How much money do you want to spend? You brave enough to go after McKinnon?
Yes, I am. Though I would agree with AJ that Zibanejad is the outstanding choice on the slate tonight. I agree with that, but a close second is McKinnon. Look, he's got 5 goals, 14 points, 38 shots on goal in his last 10 games. He's rocking it against everybody. But LA's missing their top defenseman, Drew Doughty, for the rest of the season. And that's a vulnerable defense, if you ask me, without their linchpin. So I think McKinnon is a must consider at least. And then if you want a cheaper option, I think you can fade both those guys and get Nick Suzuki, a solid play given his near point per game pace over the past month, and a Columbus team that's given up 4+ in 5 of their last 7 games.
Okay, sweet. Let's go to wing. Paul, who do you like here? How much money are you going to spend?
Same look, the three same teams that we touched on. Mikko Rantanen, $7,400 for a guy who's got 13 points, 36 shots on goal in his last 10 against that vulnerable LA team. I think that's my favorite pick. But a close second, our Timmy Paneran has been on fire, and nobody's given this guy his props. I don't understand why he's only priced at $6,600. He's a top 10 scorer in this league, and he gets that Philly matchup, so that's a bargain. And then Cole Caulfield, only $5,000 versus Columbus, despite his extended hot streak. That doesn't make sense either, because he's bringing a high shot volume against a vulnerable defense as well, and you get him for only $5,000. I say go for it.
Okay, who do you like? Who do you like on the wing?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Rangers here and go with Chris Kreider. It's an expensive line stack, but he's the 3rd player this season to hit that 50-goal mark. And we've been hammering on it, both Paul and I. You can't undersell here the quality matchup they have tonight going up against the Flyers. In April, Philly has allowed 4.67 goals per game. That's 2nd most in the league behind Montreal over that stretch. I think you make this stack slightly more affordable for yourself by adding Frank Vetrano at $3,800.
Yes.
I think he's woefully underpriced considering he's racked up 10 points in 14 games since joining the Rangers at the deadline.
Yeah, including a 3-game point streak here. He's on that top line alongside Zibanejad and Kreider. What about back on the blue line, AJ? What do you want to do?
Well, let's just make it the trifecta here, and I'll go with Adam Fox for the Rangers tonight. $6,600 is a savings compared to Makar and Werenski. He's got 67 points in 71 games this year. That's just under a point per game pace. And I think maybe the fact that he has just 1 point in his last 6 might scare some people off here. But I should point out, over that same kind of scoring slump, he's got 13 shots, 10 blocks. So a decent amount of production coming out of that as well. A little over 7 DraftKings points per game over that stretch. I think there's a great opportunity for him to get back on the score sheet.
Paul, who's your main man here on the blue line crew? Cale Makar, top price dude, $7,700.
Now, you know what? I'm going to be boring, and we're singing from the same hymnal today, AJ and I, and that's boring. I'm sorry for that, but we're going to be right. Adam Fox is the guy. He comes in at $6,600. That's the best value among the plus 5,000 gang. I know he's only got 3 points in his last 10 games played, but this is a tremendous breakout opportunity. If you're looking sub 5,000, I would mention Vlad Gavrikov for Columbus. He gets the matchup against Montreal, who are down to their 3rd and 4th string goalies the rest of the way, unless Carey Price makes a season debut anytime soon. I don't expect much from him either down the stretch, guys. But for not $4,900, Gavrikov's value comes not only from his point scoring, but the guy's got 21 shot blocks, for an average total of over 11 DK points per game in his last 10 starts. That's hard to overlook.
All right, guys, great work. Regular season ends in roughly 2.5 weeks. Should be a fun little sprint to the finish. We're going to look ahead to some futures bets around the NFL right after this break. All right, guys, the NFL awards market available in the DK Sportsbook. Lots and lots of goodness to choose from. Comeback Player of the Year. This is on your screen. Derrick Henry, the favorite, but there's tons more to choose from. Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. What do we have for Coach of the Year, by the way? Oh, Brandon Staley. Boring. All right, Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp. Boring. Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, DraftKings contributors. Not boring. Nope. Couple meat wagons here. Let's talk some favorite bets, guys, on NFL Comeback Player of the Year. That's the one we'll focus on right now. And it looks more like a list of Pro Bowlers with names like Derrick Henry and Deshaun Watson, like Michael Thomas, Christian McCaffrey. So right now, Derrick Henry is the favorite, again, at plus 300. Here we go. Deshaun Watson second, Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas. Oh, my God. All right, who would your bet be? Let's go, Pierce.
Derrick Henry is an obvious play here at the top. You got to agree with him having the odds that he has. The Titans are expected to draft for the offensive line, so they're going to get improvement there. And they still got Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, so expect the Titans to continue to run the ball. And in the limited sample size from last season, he was actually catching the balls out of the backfield for the first time ever. And then another thing on top of it is typically at the end of a season, Henry just gets driven into the ground with carry after carry by the Titans in November and December and January. This is the freshest that he's come into the league probably since his rookie season. I wouldn't be surprised to see him become an MVP candidate.
Ulrich, you're not sleeping on Travis Etienne, are you? Down here, Jaguars running back said yesterday, dude,
Okay.
the best year to miss. The best year to miss his rookie year because of the disaster that was Urban Meyer.
I guess that's one way to look at it. You know, he's coming in with fresh legs. I guess that's something to consider. No, I'm not in on Travis Etienne.
Okay.
I don't really know why Derrick Henry is even in the comeback player of the way. He missed like 8 games. That's just like a regular season for an NFL.
And he already came back. He came back in the playoffs.
But that's what I mean. He already came back.
I
Exactly.
agree.
Like, why
I agree.
is he even in this? Why is he the favorite? This makes no sense. Christian McCaffrey has played 10 games over the last 2 years. If he plays 15 games this year, that's a comeback. Cam Akers blew out his Achilles and came back for the playoffs. If he comes back to form, that's a comeback. Those are the running backs I'd much rather target at plus 800 or plus 1,000. I just think it's a better story. This is about performance, obviously, but it's also about the story. Joe Burrow, the story of coming back from the blown ACL, the blown knee, and then going to the Super Bowl. Those are the kind of things you should be chasing. I think Akers and McCaffrey for running backs anyways, far more interesting.
Well, aside from Deshaun Watson here, let's see. Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones, Mitch Trubisky. This is real-life Mitch Trubisky, not Madden Mitch, Jeff. Which quarterback stands out to you the most?
Yeah, I think for this award, I'd much rather go down to these quarterbacks. It's a quarterback-driven league. We talk about this all the time. If you're betting these awards, the quarterbacks win them all the time. And again, it was between Dak and Joe Burrow last year. I think Mitch Trubisky is interesting. I would rather go down further, though, to Marcus Mariota. Again, he's got a chance in Atlanta, who's not going to have a good defense. If he starts all their games, he's going to put up career numbers. And yes, Is Atlanta going to challenge for the NFC South title? Well, if they even just get slightly in the mix and Mariota puts up career numbers, he's going to have a great chance of winning this. He's a former first-round pick. He's a wholesome dude, a guy that the league is probably going to get behind as well. So I think a plus 1,200. Marcus Mariota, probably my favorite of the quarterback, probably just my favorite pick overall from a long shot perspective.
Okay, Pierce, do you agree with that?
No, I don't. So the problem with the other quarterback, I like Mitch. We talk about Mitch all the time here in the offseason. You go back to the 2020 episodes that we did. We talked about Mitch every single week. He's talented. Hopefully he has matured in his season in Buffalo, and he's going to a really good spot with a lot of weapons. Najee Harris is an elite running back. He had amazing numbers given that his offensive line was absolutely miserable. There's really good receivers on this Pittsburgh team. So, yeah, the line is a bit of an issue, but hopefully if they're healthy, they're going to be better. And you look at the other quarterbacks, they have the same problems. Every one of the quarterbacks on this list have poor offensive lines. They also have half the weapons that Mitch Trubisky is going to have. But another thing, when we talk about Joe Burrow winning this award, they won games. That is a big deal. If you help your team win games and get into the playoffs, that's an extra statistical category that will help you win this award. And when we look at who's going to win games, I think Trubisky has the best bet of winning games.
All right, who's a longer shot you think could sneak up and win this award, Pierce? Billy, follow me, please. Robert Woods,
Khalil Mack
plus 1,200.
1,800.
Here we
If
go.
he can jump in here and join the Chargers defense and take them from the worst rush defense in the league to just average, then they're going to win the AFC West. They will be Super Bowl contenders. Now, Herbert and Eckler, they'll all get the credits, but most people will know that if Mack goes in there and transforms this defense, then he's worth the award. The other guy with even longer odds, Max Williams at 5,000. The Cardinals are thin with pass catchers. Hopkins, we don't know what his health is. He's getting up there in years. Edmonds is gone. Christian Kirk is gone. His volume could increase. You look at the small sample size, which was roughly 3 games last year. He caught 16 passes, 193 yards. That's 5 catches, 75 yards a game. If you multiply that, for a 17-game season, that's an 85 reception season for 1,275 yards. That might seem like a stretch, but he is really the only weapon on this offense right now that maybe we can count on. I would not be surprised to see Williams go for over 1,000 yards receiving. If that's the case, he's got a really good shot at being the comeback player of the year.
If I give Jeff the option to go Max Williams or his boy Dan Arnold, Jaguars tight end, you loved this dude last year before his injury, Jeff. He's plus 5,000.
I do love him, but look, if any one of these tight ends win comeback player of the year, I mean, it's going to be the upset of upsets here. I mean, I like these guys, but like we need like 100 catch seasons, I think, for them to take over some of these days. Again, we're talking Pro Bowlers at the top here. So Dan Arnold, Max Williams, I got some love for them, but I mean, not that much. I'd rather go to DJ Chark at plus 2,800. If the Lions don't draft a wide receiver, Chark's going to be that main outside guy starting. And I mean, like, I know Pierce thinks the Lions are like the reincarnation of the 1990 Dallas Cowboys, but it's still a pretty bad team that's probably going to be down a lot. DJ Chark could easily put up like an 80 reception, 1,000-yard season here. Those are pretty decent odds. I would rather gamble on Chark, who, again, has the metrics to be like a top-end wide receiver. He's always had the talent. He just hasn't been consistent. If he can play all the games, and he's got a better shot. I know the odds are shorter, but he's got a better shot at winning than like backup tight end.
Dude, relax, man. You never know. Trevor Lawrence is going to have a
never
breakout.
know.
Trevor Lawrence is going to have a breakout year. Arnold could have like 10 touchdown receptions next season.
Hey,
Who the
DJ
hell?
Chark is a former Jaguar. You should be getting behind that.
Yeah, you know what? I love him, and I appreciate everything he did for the franchise. So, Jeff, your early pick to win NFL Comeback Player of the Year, it sounds like it's Marcus Mariota.
It is Marcus Mariota. I mean, Pierce is right. They got to win games, but I think if Atlanta is anything competitive, Marcus Mariota is going to get all the credit. He could put up, 1,000 yards rushing or something crazy like that. He's just super talented. I think he's the type of player that the media will get behind too if he starts well.
Okay, Pierce.
J.K. Dobbins at 1,100. We've forgotten all about this guy. Look at his rookie season. 134 carries for 805 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. We're not talking about 6 yards per carry for a game or two. 134 carries for 6 yards per carry in his rookie season. And that was a COVID rookie season where he didn't get off-season workouts. He didn't get a preseason. He was just thrown straight into the fire, and he was splitting carries with Ingram and Bradley and with Lamar Jackson. He will have, if he is healthy, I imagine J.K. Dobbins goes for 1,400 yards. And at that point, it's really hard to not give him the comeback player of the year.
That was so brutal for the Ravens, where it felt like 4 days in a row they lost all of their running backs to injuries. Like that really sucked for them. Before you guys go, before you guys go, how great does Derek Carr have it after he was given the contract extension this morning, Jeff? So 3 years, $121.5 million with the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically saying that Derek Carr is what, like 85%, 90% of Aaron Rodgers. It's a pretty nice situation. Now he's got Devontae Adams. You know, the Vegas, obviously, the new stadium to play behind. I don't know. I mean, Derek Carr, I think kind of just gets overlooked in the league. Like he is a solid quarterback. I mean, you look at his metrics and it plays out that he should be considered as like a top 10 just in terms of like a pocket passer. So I think it does make sense that, you know, if you weren't going to get behind Derek Carr, what's the better option out there? That the answer is there wasn't one. That's why he got paid.
Is this absurd to you, Pierce?
You know who it's absurd to? His brother David, who never had an offensive line.
Yeah.
What could he have been if he had an offensive line? Man, he's got to be so jealous and resentful. Meanwhile, his brother has Devontae Adams and Darren Waller to throw to and living in Las Vegas. Yeah, that's absurd.
David Carr gets to work in sports media, man. It's a dream job of us. I mean,
it's true. Look at us. We're essentially his big brother. Look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. All right, guys. Adios. Appreciate the help. What are we doing next? We're going to talk some MLB splurge or save. Who to splurge and who to save. Or I guess who to not spend money on. Who to not splurge on right after this. All right, Tuesday's top scores, fantasy scores around Major League Baseball. They are on your screen right now. Marcell Ozuna leading the way with Jose Ramirez. Man, the Guardians are off to a ridiculous start right now. And then you had the Padres last night, DraftKings contributor Nick Fryer and Gary and Thorne. The Padres getting a little emotional over, I guess they were getting spanked, right? Like 9-0, and forget who it was who laid down a bunt single, and now they're crying about it in early April. How ridiculous is that, Garion?
It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't even give it more than like 3 seconds of thought.
Yeah.
I just don't care about these things at all. I feel like the Padres are strangely always involved in them, and they're sometimes on both sides. So it's hard to really tell what the vibe exactly that clubhouse is. Are they old school or are they new school? I don't really know. Do they know? Yeah, but I think the biggest story coming out of yesterday was probably Jesus Luzardo, Jesus Lizard, looking like we know he can look, coming out and striking out 12 guys in 5 innings. To me, along with just, again, being able to say definitively Patrick Corbin is not a good Major League Baseball pitcher at this point in his career, those are like the 2 big things to come out of Tuesday's slate.
Yeah, Fryer, real quick, just like what was your biggest takeaway like yesterday? In that Giants-Padres game, by the way, Alyssa Nacken becoming the first woman to coach on field in Major League Baseball history, so that's pretty dope.
That is awesome. And I think Gary is on something when you're talking about the Padres. I know he doesn't care about it as much, but when you see that kind of like what is their identity sort of thing, and they're complaining about these little things early on in the season, it's almost like they're trying to make up for other deficiencies and concerns that could be coming up down the line. But I think, Emerson, you hit on the Guardians a little bit. This is ridiculous what we're seeing from them offensively. Of course, you expect it from Ramirez, but I love.
All right, let's screen grab that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, make sure you screen grab that shot of him frozen because that is a large mouth. You froze for a second, Fry. I don't know if you were unfrozen, but I'll start with you, Gary, when we move our way to today's slate. Like, there are a lot of day games here on getaway day. So what's your favorite early slate? DFS play.
Yeah, I think I would run with Matt Olson. I think when you look at Matt Olson and what he's been able to do, so far this season. He's been a fantastic hitter. He's also got an opposite hand matchup going up against Josiah Gray. Gray, really high prospect pedigree, someone who I think will be a good pitcher at some point in his career, but so far has given up 2.67 home runs per 9 to left-handed opponents. I just think Matt Olson's probably due to hit a long ball today.
Okay, Nick, you are unfrozen. You have melted, and your favorite early slate DFS play is who and why?
Didn't know I froze. My apologies.
It's okay.
Pete Alonso is my guy at 4.7K going up against the Phillies. He's won for his last 11, broke out of not a slump, but got a hit last night after going a little cold for a little bit. Aaron Nola going up against him, 32 career plate appearances against this guy, 345 average, 1.13 OPS against him, 2 doubles, 3 home runs. And the other thing is, too, Alonso's great during day games. Last season, 179 at-bats, 307 average, 10 home runs, 10 doubles.
Gare Bear, splurge or save at pitcher?
Well, there's only 8 options tonight, so I think you're probably going to end up doing both. I like a guy for each category, but I will say I think this is a Corbin Burnes slate. I think he really showcases himself tonight. It almost feels like wrong. It feels a little dirty to get Corbin Burnes for less than $10,000. He's only $9,600 on this 4-gamer. It wasn't an amazing opening day start against the Cubs. However, he did throw 83 pitches, which sort of signifies that he's probably fully built up going into this start. I don't think we're going to see any restrictions on Corbin Burnes. And considering that the Baltimore Orioles have kind of just really been Oriolesing so far in 2022, I mean, they already lead baseball in strikeout rate by a pretty wide margin. They're striking out in 30.9% of their plate appearances so far this season. No other team in baseball is above 27%. So I think Burnes is going to be able to rack up the strikeouts today. I think he'll be able to work deep into this contest. And I think he's very worthy of consideration, again, considering this is probably the last time this season you're going to get him for less than 10K.
All right, Fryer, what do you want to do at pitcher?
I think Gehring makes a great case when it comes to Corbin Burnes. And I mean, it's not like, of course, he's a stud and everything, and the Orioles strike out a ton. But I do want to save tonight. I think you should get some exposure to Burnes. But you got McClanahan, who's at 7.5K. Montes is at 6.9K. And Means is at 6K on the other side of that Milwaukee matchup. And as much as the Orioles have been terrible, the Brewers, not necessarily the greatest hitting team either. You look at Oakland, too, and Tampa Bay, in terms of strikeouts per game. Yes, I understand the Orioles are the worst, but Oakland is right there, Tampa Bay, and Milwaukee's not that much farther down, and the Brewers have like a 125 team ISO out the gates, 642 team OPS. I know it's early, but they have not looked great offensively either, and I think you can save in most of your lineups tonight.
All right, you want to splurge or save in the infield then, Nick?
I'm kind of, I guess save is going to be the default where I go here, but I'd rather you can still spend up a little bit. I think you have Matt Chapman at 3.9K. I know Garrett Cole is a tough matchup for any guy, but he's shown some power against Cole in the past. Of course, Yankee Stadium, you don't need to have a whole lot of power whenever you're hitting there. Ryan Mountcastle, too. Again, I know Corbin Burnes is a tough matchup, but at 3.8K, he's off to a solid start. That's a guy who you can go and rely on. And then from there, you can still, say if you save at pitching, you can still get a couple expensive guys in the infield. But I think those are 2 guys to kind of start your lineup with on the cheaper side.
All right, Garion, take us to infield.
Yeah, I'll give 1 splurge and 1 save. I think you can splurge on someone like Anthony Rizzo. I don't think Jose Barrios is only going to record 1 out today. I think he's probably good for at least twice that. So that's good. But even if you look back to last season, when Barrios struggled, it was against left-handed bats. He's dominant in right-on-right situations. It's the lefties that give him issue. And in that first start against Texas, he faced 4 lefties, all 4 reach base, 1 hit a home run. Rizzo's on fire to start this season. He's got a 5.04 expected WOBA through his first 22 plate appearances of the season. He's just feeling it right now. And anytime you can get a power left-handed bat at Yankee Stadium, I don't think it's a bad idea. So $4,700 for Rizzo is a really, really nice price. And if you want to offset that, I think Chad Pinder is the best value play of the day. You could put this guy at third base. You could also put him in the outfield. So there's versatility here as well. But he's just $2,300 going up against a difficult left-handed pitcher in Shane McClanahan, but Pinder, 144 WRC plus against left-handed pitching last season. He has always been an elite platoon bat against left-handed pitching. And because Oakland just doesn't have a ton of options, he's probably going to be hitting cleanup today. So you're getting a cleanup hitter for $2,300, who's got great numbers within the split. I think Chad Pinder is one of the best plays on this slate, period.
Bring us home with this, Gare Bear. Splurge or save in the outfield?
I'm splurging. I'm going right to the
Yes.
tippity top. I hope this game plays, because that's a big question mark. You got to watch out for the rain tonight in Chicago. We could go from a 4-game slate to a 3-game slate, which is even more fun. But Luis Robert is just absolutely en fuego to start this season. And this is someone who throughout his career, it's a brief career, especially with the injuries, but he crushes left-handed pitching. He's got a 184 WRC plus for his career against southpaws. And this season, not only does he have an expected WOBA above 600, so he's tearing the cover off the ball, he's also just got 4 stolen bases because he can do whatever he wants on a baseball field. So I think Luis Robert is my number 1 target tonight. I'll offset it with guys like Chad Pinder, thankfully, but I'm willing to pay $5,800 for a guy who's this talented.
All right, Gare Bear, a little splurge muffin. What about you, Mr. Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to splurge here as well. And I am with Gary in that game. Of course, the Mariners-White Sox game is a big one to go to tonight. I mean, Haniger is another guy I like in that lineup. But again, rain is an issue in that one, so I'm going to stay away from that for right now. Look back towards that Yankees-Blue Jays game. And again, on that Blue Jays side of this, I know, again, Garrett Cole, tough matchup. But Teoscar Hernandez has done well against him throughout his career, and Hernandez has been hitting the ball well. I know he hasn't knocked in a run since opening day, which is kind of mind-blowing when you consider this guy's hitting 4th in the lineup, but that does mean he's due. And also a guy who hits well at Yankee Stadium too. Last season, 10 games, couple home runs, 415 on base percentage too. So this is one of my favorite guys at 4.3K today.
Yeah, the afternoon slate, gentlemen, gets going in about 33 minutes from this exact moment. Appreciate all the help. We will talk some golf because you have the RBC Heritage teeing off tomorrow. So Reed and Len will join us after our final break of this award-winning program. Hey, the RBC Heritage tees off tomorrow. It's in Hilton Head. It's that beautiful lighthouse striped. It's warm down there this time of year. It gets a little moist. DraftKings contributor Reed T. Fowler, RotoWire's golf writer here. Len Hochberg, senior golf writer. Good to see both you guys, both wearing collared shirts. That's excellent. Let's do some PGA Tour pin placement here. So give us where you think the following players will finish in the field at the RBC Heritage. Reed T. Fowler, talk to me here about Justin Thomas. He's 11-1 on DK.
Yeah, and few are hitting it better than JT. I know it wasn't what we all thought it was going to be at Augusta National last week, but still, I mean, there was a reason why coming into it we thought he was the guy who was going to get that green jacket. So having said that, 11-1, it's hard to say that he's going to finish outside the top 10, but I'll venture to say that this might be a little bit of a letdown. I still think he's number 1 in terms of the power rankings. You can't rank him or Morikawa out of it, but I think there might be a little bit of a letdown. If you look at the guys at 10,000 and above, I think Cameron Smith is definitely someone. Len talked about him last week, and that was a great call. I think he's someone that keeps it going, even though we've seen Cam Smith in the past falter after a top finish or a win in his next few events. I still think he's the one guy I want to target.
Yeah, Len, he's finished in the top 10 8 times since his last victory at the Players in March of last year. You're on mute, brother. Still can't hear you.
Oh.
There. Oh.
I think Len's saying we have to class up the sweat with collared shirts. That's, I think, what he's saying.
It sounds like he was saying, if I was reading his lips correctly,
you hear me now?
you were correct. Yes, we got you. We got you.
Well, I was saying thanks for the shout out to the shirt, and the RotoWire logo is there, and the suits at RotoWire sent me the shirt and said, I have to make sure that the logo gets in the shot, or I have to pay for the shirt.
Okay.
So, no, that's not true. I only have to pay for half. Anyway, this is a quirky week, as Reed was saying, coming off the Masters. We have to factor that in with Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas has been playing great.
Len
Players and
appears we are having some
come in at this tournament. So I do like Justin Thomas to be in the mix, but not win the tournament. I'm going to put him in the top 10 because he's in the top 10 every week, no matter what.
All right, Len, 5 dudes who are north of 10K. We just talked about one of them. Another one, Patrick Cantlay at 10 grand. So what would you do here? Where do you think he's going to finish?
I want to say that I think we have Patrick Cantlay to blame for Scotty Scheffler. We had Scotty Scheffler had won nothing until the playoff with Patrick Cantlay at Phoenix, and ever since then, Scotty Scheffler has done everything, and Patrick Cantlay has done nothing. Patrick Cantlay has not finished in the top 25 since Phoenix. This is a tough week. He's done very well at this tournament through the years, not last year. So many guys make the cut at this tournament. I'm not going to say he's going to miss the cut, but something is definitely off with Patrick Cantlay's game. I'm going to sort of put him in the top 25, not the top 10 like Justin Thomas, and therefore I would say that he is overpriced at over 10,000.
Yeah, he does kind of feel like a lackluster effort there at the Masters 39th, but he did rank top 15 in approach play.
Yeah, he's an anomaly, right? Dude, something's definitely up with Patrick Cantlay, kind of like Julian Edlow. But at $10,000, look, I mean, he's the guy that I think is the hardest to figure out, because he's probably going to be the one that'll win a lot of people money if he does what he's done in 3 of his last 4 starts here, right? It's like 3rd, 7th, 3rd, and a missed cut, something along those lines, right? It's fantastic. And Cantlay, before the WM Phoenix Open, he was one of the best golfers. Him and Rahm were two, like, in terms of weighted strokes gained, we're two above, like high and above everybody else in the field, no matter what. So I'll give him. I'm a little bit more bullish on Patrick Cantlay. I still think it's a little bit of a not a letdown spot, but it's going to be lower than where he is in the odds. I'm going to say he finishes top 5, top 6, because he's always got that 64 in his back pocket, and that's exactly what you can do here.
Fowler, HV3, runner up here last year. He's $8,500 in DFS. Can he finish near the top again?
He always gets talked up when we're in the Carolinas, always.
Yep.
And look, he's won, right? He won overseas at the DP World Tour. He beat up Bubba Watson. But I'm going to see a little bit of a letdown for HV3. There's always that one hole. If it's not like, if it shoots 6 under, 7 under, first round leader, he comes back on Friday and shoots 73. It's really hard with HV3. Someone right around that range, and I'm much more bullish on that could potentially win this, who hasn't done much, is Webb Simpson. I mean, his record on these type of courses, and especially here, is fantastic. So give me someone like Webb to finish higher than HV3. I want to say HV3 probably a 27th to 30th place.
All right, cool. What do you think here, Len? He broke par in 3 of his 4 rounds at Augusta, T23 there, man.
Right, and the other was an 80. So he has that in him in majors. Yeah, he has won. He's in the top 50 in the world. Very interesting. You look at his numbers. He's usually pretty straight hitter, but he is way outside the top 150 in driving accuracy and strokes gained approach. Those are 2 pretty important stats this week. I'm not too high on Harold Varner this week at $8,500. He'll make the cut. Just about everybody makes the cut. Half the field makes the cut. But right down a little bit lower at 8,200, Tommy Fleetwood has really been coming on. He was very close to dropping out of the top 50 in the world. He's now solidly in the lower 40s, but he's got 4 top 25s in a row, also at the Masters, just like Varner. And I like him a lot better. There's a great scrambler around the greens.
Apologies to Hat Tan Man, Stuart Sink. We are running tight on time. So, Reed T. Fowler. And I know how much you love talking about Stuart Sink. But who was your pick to win the RBC Heritage?
Look, there's a good swath of guys in that 50 to like 75 range, but I really like Webb Simpson. I mean, what he does after major tournaments, and boy, he hasn't won in so long, and that's not what we're used to with Webb Simpson. This is exactly what he needs to come back, is this type of tournament where he's won before and has got a top 20, top 10, top 15, top 5, and a runner-up at this event, along with solid finishes and some correlators. Getting Webb Simpson.
Yeah, nobody's played Harbortown better, really, the last 5 years. Len, who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm really circling around three guys: Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick, Corey Connors, all playing well, all played well here. I'm just going to roll the dice and say Matt Fitzpatrick. He had a little bit less meaningful, pressure-filled situation last week, and he loves his Harbor Town. He talks about it all the time. Matt Fitzpatrick finally breaks through.
All right, my man. I like it. I like it. Fire take. Appreciate both you guys helping us out with RBC Heritage picks. Reed, you, Jeff, and yours truly will talk much more golf, a lot more RBC Heritage tonight on a Wednesday edition of the slate, the highest rated edition of the slate, 5 o'clock on the Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch pages of DraftKings. And then you have Madden's kicking off here at high noon. So everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.